A holy stillness fills this sacred place. I lift my eyes beyond the mountain height to find the source of everlasting light. Your goodness flows through every breath I take. Within this soul of gratitude.
What if the mystery of the daughter does not end when she is brought into the palace? What if her presence begins to shape the house itself? The children, the service, the speech, the peace, and the whole atmosphere of the dwelling? Today, we are stepping into a deeper part of the wedding mystery, because the daughter is not only received in beauty, she becomes the one through whom the house begins to reveal wisdom, order, and the living peace of the King. There is a difference between entering a house and shaping it. There is a difference between being welcomed into a dwelling and becoming the quiet source of its atmosphere. And this is where the mystery of the daughter becomes very beautiful, because Scripture does not leave her standing only in the brightness of arrival. It allows us to ask what happens after the entrance. It allows us to ask what kind of house begins to emerge when her presence is no longer only celebrated but abiding. Many know how to speak of the wedding. Many know how to speak of the procession, the chamber, the priestess, and the joy of being brought near, but fewer know how to speak of what comes after. The order of the house, the wisdom of the dwelling, the peace that begins to permeate daily life when covenant beauty is no longer only a moment of revelation, but a continuing presence within the household. And this is why the ordered house matters so much, because the daughter is not received into the dwelling as a silent ornament. She is not merely one admired in the royal scene and then left without effect. Her presence begins to shape what surrounds her. The rooms begin to feel different. The speech of the house begins to sound different. The children begin to grow under a different sky. The rhythms of service begin to move under a different measure. The house itself begins to reveal whether wisdom is truly living there. This is what makes the topic so holy. The house is not only walls and rooms, it is an atmosphere. It is a relation, it is nurture, it is peace or unrest made visible. It is the sound of daily life under one covering. And when the daughter begins to order the house, she does not do so by noise, rivalry, or mere outward control. She does so by peace, discernment, beauty, timing, nurture, and holy arrangement. Under her presence, what is scattered begins to find its place. So tonight we are looking at a mystery many overlook: how the daughter orders her house, how wisdom becomes atmosphere, how peace becomes structure, how daily life becomes a witness, and how the dwelling itself can begin to reflect the order of the King. Once the daughter has been brought into the dwelling, the mystery takes another form. No longer is she seen only in the brightness of arrival, the joy of procession, or the honor of being received. Now her presence begins to work more quietly, but no less powerfully. The life of the house starts to gather around another measure. The atmosphere changes. The rhythms begin to settle. What was celebrated in the royal scene begins to take shape in daily life. This matters because many people know how to speak about the entrance, but very few know how to speak about the order after the entrance. They know how to speak of beauty being received, but not how beauty begins to govern the atmosphere of the house. They know how to speak of the wedding, but not of the dwelling formed by what the wedding has established. Yet Scripture does not stop with arrival alone. It allows us to ask what kind of house emerges when the daughter is present within it. It allows us to ask what changes when her wisdom, her peace, and her ordered beauty begin to permeate the dwelling. And this is where the holy pattern deepens, because the daughter does not order the house by harshness, by rivalry, or by the restless assertion of herself. She orders the house by presence. She orders it by wisdom. She orders it by beauty that is not merely seen but felt. She orders it by the quiet authority of what has already come into harmony within. This is why the ordered house must never be reduced to a means of control. It is not control that makes a dwelling beautiful. It is peace. It is a right relation. It is the placing of things according to their proper meaning before God. So when the daughter orders the house, she is not simply arranging outward details. She is bringing the dwelling into agreement with a deeper life. She is bringing what is under her care into harmony with the order she carries. This is why her presence matters so much, because where there is true inward wisdom, the outer dwelling begins to reflect it. What is scattered begins to find its place. What is noisy begins to quiet down in the presence of better sound. What is strained begins to soften into right relation. The house becomes more than an occupied space. It becomes a formed atmosphere. And that is the first thing we must understand about the ordered house. It is an atmosphere before it is a structure. It is the climate of peace created by holy presence. It is the sense that things belong where they are, that relations are not chaotic, that beauty is not forced, that the dwelling is not fighting against itself. The daughter orders the house by carrying within herself a pattern that the dwelling can receive. Her inward order becomes outward influence. Her peace becomes household peace. Her wisdom becomes a household arrangement. This is why the language of wisdom belongs so naturally here. In Scripture, a house is not only built by strength, it is built by wisdom. It is established by understanding. It is filled with knowledge that brings precious and pleasant things into the rooms. The daughter belongs to that kind of order. She is not merely a figure of affection. She is a figure of wise arrangement. Her beauty is not empty beauty. It is beauty joined to discernment, joined to timing, joined to the ability to know what belongs where and what must not rule the atmosphere of the dwelling. So the ordered house is not only clean lines or visible harmony, it is relational harmony. It is the peace of a proper place. It is the grace by which those within the house begin to move without devouring one another. It is the beauty of a dwelling where honor is not forgotten, where nearness is not abused, where joy is not scattered, and where what belongs to the king is not treated as common. Under the daughter's presence, the house begins to feel governed by meaning. And this helps us see why the daughter and the house belong together so deeply. Because the house is not only a setting around her, the house becomes an extension of what she carries. It begins to reflect her measure, her atmosphere, her rhythm, her form of peace. This is why the ordered house is one of the great signs of her inward life. It is not merely that she lives in the house, it is that the house begins to bear witness to the quality of her presence. The rooms begin to speak the language of arrangement. The household begins to move in a way that reveals hidden wisdom at work. This also means that her ordering of the house includes the ordering of relationships. The attendants, the children, the companions, the gathered ones, the life of the dwelling itself, all of these begin to find their place under a better harmony. Not because she erases distinction, but because she preserves it rightly. The ordered house is not a place where everything becomes the same. It is a place where each thing is honored in its proper place. The daughter brings this kind of order because she does not govern by confusion. She governs by fit, by proportion, by spiritual placement, by the beauty of knowing what belongs together and what must remain distinct. So when we speak of her ordering the house, we are speaking of something much deeper than management. We are speaking of shaping a dwelling that can bear joy without breaking, beauty without vanity, nearness without disorder, abundance without rivalry. We are speaking of creating a royal atmosphere. A house becomes royal not merely because it belongs to a king, but because it begins to reflect the order of the kingdom. And the daughter, standing within her place, becomes one of the great signs that this order has taken living form. This is why the house under her presence becomes a place of peace. Peace is not emptiness. Peace is the quiet strength of the right arrangement. Peace is what happens when each relation is allowed to stand in its proper light. Peace is what happens when wisdom restrains what would scatter the dwelling and instead gathers the household into harmony. The daughter carries this peace not as passivity, but as formed authority. She does not create order by noise. She creates order by the power of what has already been ordered within herself. And perhaps this is why the house must be seen as part of the wedding mystery. The wedding is not only about the entrance, it is about the formation of a dwelling life. It is about what kind of household arises when covenant beauty has been brought within. If the bride enters and nothing changes, then the mystery has not truly been understood. But if her presence begins to affect the atmosphere, the relations, the peace, the beauty, and the arrangement of the dwelling, then we begin to see that the covenant has become living. The house is no longer merely a place where she resides. It has become a place shaped by her presence. So the daughter orders her house through peace, wisdom, beauty, and holy arrangement. She orders it by making the dwelling fit for presence. She orders it by turning scattered life into gathered life. She orders it by carrying inward harmony that becomes outward form. She orders it by giving the household a climate in which joy can remain, honor can breathe, and the things of the king can rest without being diminished. And once this begins to open, a deeper question rises. If the daughter orders the house in this way, then what does that look like in the life of the household itself? What happens to the children under her peace? What happens to the attendants under her wisdom? What happens to the rooms, the table, the service, the daily life of the dwelling when her order begins to permeate it? Because the mystery does not end with her presence alone. It continues into the transformation of the household under her hand. And when her order begins to permeate the household, it does not remain an abstract beauty resting in the background. It touches the life within the house. It begins to shape the children, the attendants, the service, the rhythms, the atmosphere of the rooms, and the tone of daily life. Because a truly ordered house is not only seen in great ceremonial moments, it is revealed in what happens every day. It is revealed in whether peace survives ordinary life. It is revealed whether wisdom reaches the hidden corners of the dwelling. It is revealed whether the life of the house begins to reflect the same harmony that the daughter carries within herself. This is why the children matter so much in this mystery. The children are among the clearest signs of what kind of house exists. Where there is confusion, the children breathe confusion. Where there is rivalry, the children learn unrest. Where there is dishonor, the children grow under a broken sound. But where the daughter's peace shapes the dwelling, the children begin to live under a better atmosphere. They are formed within order. They are nourished within beauty. They are protected by a climate of meaning. The house itself becomes part of their formation. And this is very beautiful, because the daughter does not only care for the house as a structure, she cares for what grows within it. She becomes a keeper of atmosphere, a guardian of peace, one through whom the dwelling becomes a place where life can unfold without being constantly torn by disorder. The children under her presence are not merely managed. They are gathered. They are held within a world that teaches them rhythm, reverence, place, joy, and relation. In that sense, her ordering of the house becomes a kind of hidden teaching. The household learns from the world she creates around it. The attendants matter too, because the ordered house includes service. A royal dwelling has movement within it. It has responsibilities, tasks, offerings, acts of care, acts of honor, things that must be carried, prepared, tended, and kept. So the daughter's order does not remove service. It sanctifies it. Under her wisdom, service is not frantic. It is not scattered. It is not degraded into noise. It becomes meaningful. It becomes part of the rhythm of the dwelling. The attendants begin to serve within a climate of peace rather than strain, within a pattern of honor rather than confusion. And this tells us something very important. The ordered house is not inactive. It is alive. Things are happening within it. There is movement, there is care, there is preparation, there is nurture, there is tending, there is relation. But all of this begins to move under a better government. The daughter's order does not mean nothing happens. It means what happens begins to align. The daily life of the house is not erased. It is harmonized. So even the rooms of the house begin to take on meaning. The table becomes more than furniture. It becomes a place of sharing, provision, and order. The chambers become more than private spaces. They become places where peace is preserved. The doors, the pathways, the places of gathering, the places of service, the places of rest, all of these begin to belong to one atmosphere. The house no longer feels like a collection of unrelated fragments. It begins to feel like one dwelling, and that unity is one of the strongest signs of her ordering presence. This is why daily life matters so much in the mystery. It is easy to speak beautifully about palaces, garments, chambers, and glory, but the true power of order is seen in whether it can remain in the ordinary. Can it govern the table? Can it govern service? Can it govern speech? Can it govern the movement of those who live under the same roof? The daughter's wisdom is shown not only in lofty revelation, but in whether the household can actually dwell in peace. And when it can, That peace becomes one of the most convincing witnesses that her order is real. The same is true of speech within the house. A disordered house is often full of wrong speech, sharpness, rivalry, endless agitation, words that tear instead of build. But where the daughter's order is present, speech itself begins to change. Words begin to carry weight, care, and proportion. Silence itself becomes different. It is no longer the silence of suppression, but the quiet of peace. The dwelling begins to sound different because it is being governed by another spirit. The order of the house can be heard before it is even fully seen. And this is where the mystery becomes very practical without losing its holiness. The daughter orders the house by giving it a livable peace. She makes joy sustainable. She makes service bearable. She makes a relationship breathable. She gives the household a way to remain together without devouring itself. That is not a small thing. That is one of the most royal acts in the life of a dwelling. To create an atmosphere where life can flourish in peace is itself a sign of wisdom. So the children, the attendants, and the daily life of the house all become witnesses to whether her order is truly present. The children reveal whether peace is alive. The attendants reveal whether service has become harmonious. The rooms reveal whether the dwelling has become unified. The table reveals whether provision and fellowship have found their proper place. The speech of the house reveals whether wisdom is governing its tone. All of these are outward signs of something inwardly established. And perhaps this is why the ordered house is such a profound continuation of the wedding mystery, because covenant beauty must become dwelling beauty. The glory of the entrance must become the peace of daily life. The joy of being brought in must become the wisdom of being established within. Otherwise, the palace remains only a scene of arrival, never becoming a living household. But the daughter's presence carries the mystery further. She turns the entrance into a habitation. She turns beauty into atmosphere. She turns royal joy into household peace. So when we ask what happens under her order, the answer is not merely that the house looks beautiful. It is that life within it becomes more rightly arranged. The children grow under a sounder sky. The attendants move within a gentler rhythm. The rooms begin to hold peace rather than pressure. The table becomes a place of gathered life. The words spoken within the house begin to reflect wisdom rather than fracture. The daily flow of the dwelling begins to reveal that another order is at work. And that is why the daughter's ordering of the house is not ornamental. It is formative. It shapes people. It shapes relations. It shapes service. It shapes how life is carried. It shapes the atmosphere children inherit and the spirit the attendants breathe. Her order is not merely around the household. It enters it. It becomes part of the very way the dwelling lives. And once that is seen, another layer opens before us. If her order shapes the children, the attendants, and the daily life of the house, then what is the deeper wisdom by which she does this? What is the spiritual principle under her peace? How does her inward life become such outward harmony? Because behind the visible order of the house, there is still something deeper. The wisdom that governs timing, speech, relation, nurture, and peace from within. And when we ask about the deeper wisdom by which the daughter orders the house, we are really asking about the hidden spring beneath the visible peace. Because the harmony of the dwelling does not come from outward arrangement alone. It does not come merely from placing people in rooms, assigning tasks, or keeping appearances beautiful. The true order of the house comes from a wisdom that lives beneath the surface. It comes from an inward measure. It comes from the ability to perceive what each moment requires, what each relation can bear, what must be strengthened, what must be softened, what must be quieted, and what must be brought into the light. That is why her wisdom is the real architecture of the house. This is very important because many can impose structure without ever creating peace. Many can demand silence without ever bringing rest. Many can control appearances while the house's inward life remains fractured. But the daughter's wisdom is not like that. Her wisdom is living. It discerns. It listens. It knows the difference between order and suppression, between beauty and pretense, between peace and mere stillness. She does not make the house orderly by forcing all things down into lifelessness. She makes it orderly by guiding the life within it into right relation. So her wisdom is, first of all, a wisdom of discernment. She perceives the currents moving through the dwelling. She recognizes when something small is beginning to disturb the peace before it grows into greater unrest. She knows when a word must be spoken and when a word must be withheld. She knows when gentleness is the stronger act and when firmness is the kinder one. This kind of wisdom cannot be manufactured by rules alone. It must arise from inward formation. It must be the fruit of a life that has itself been brought into harmony before God. And that is why her inward life matters more than any outward arrangement. The house receives from what she carries. If she carries unrest, the house will eventually breathe unrest. If she carries rivalry, the house will begin to echo rivalry. But if she carries peace, measured speech, discernment, and holy proportion, then the house begins to rest under those things. Her inward life becomes an atmosphere, her heart becomes a fountain, and what flows from that fountain begins to shape the dwelling around her. This is why wisdom in the house is not merely intelligence. It is a spiritual proportion. It is knowing what belongs where, when, and in what measure. It is the ability to keep one thing from devouring another. It is the grace of preserving distinctions without causing division. It is the strength to maintain peace without becoming weak, and to maintain order without becoming hard. The daughter's wisdom is royal because it holds together things that lesser forms of rule often tear apart: beauty and truth, gentleness and authority, abundance and restraint, nearness and reverence, joy and order. So when her inward wisdom becomes household peace, it does so through many hidden acts. It appears in the way she carries the tone of the house. It appears in the way she answers agitation without multiplying it. It appears in the way she steadies what is wavering rather than amplifying instability. It appears in the way she protects the household's vulnerable spaces from being treated carelessly. Her wisdom is not loud, yet it is formative. It does not always announce itself, yet it can be felt in the health of the dwelling. And perhaps this is why the ordered house often seems to carry a quiet strength. It is not strong because it is rigid. It is strong because wisdom is holding it together from within. There is a difference between a house that is tightly managed and a house that is truly established. One may look controlled while remaining brittle. The other may feel gentle while possessing great stability. The daughter's wisdom creates the second kind. She does not merely hold things in place by pressure. She establishes them by giving them a right relation to one another. This is also why timing belongs to her wisdom. Not everything should happen at once. Not every word should be spoken in every moment. Not every correction should come in the same tone. Not every door should be opened the moment it can be. Wisdom knows rhythm. Wisdom knows the season. Wisdom knows when the house needs stillness, when it needs nourishment, when it needs cleansing, when it needs celebration, and when it needs waiting. The daughter orders the house not only by what she does, but by when she does it. Her timing protects the dwelling from the soul's violence. And this reaches even into nurture, because wisdom not only preserves order, it cultivates life. It knows how to feed what is growing. It knows how to shelter what is still tender. It knows how to mature what is not yet ready to bear full weight. The children, the attendants, and the life of the household itself all receive from this nurturing wisdom. Under her order, things do not merely remain in place. They are allowed to grow properly. The house becomes not only peaceful, but fruitful. So royal order is not a frozen arrangement. It is living harmony. It is a dwelling in which life can move without becoming chaotic. It is a place where authority does not crush tenderness, and tenderness does not dissolve order. The daughter's wisdom holds both. She creates an atmosphere where reverence and warmth may live together. That is one of the marks of true household peace. A house is not truly ordered when it is cold. It is truly ordered when love has found form. And once that is seen, we understand that her wisdom is itself a kind of hidden liturgy of the house. Not liturgy in the narrow sense of ritual words alone, but in the sense that she shapes the repeated patterns by which the dwelling lives. The daily movements, the tones of speech, the ways of receiving, serving, correcting, nourishing, gathering, and resting, all of these form a rhythm. Under her wisdom, that rhythm becomes beautiful. It becomes coherent. It begins to sound like a single song rather than many competing noises. The house starts to live as though it has one inward heart. That is why wisdom becomes peace, Not because peace is passive, but because wisdom knows how to align life. Peace is the fruit of many right placements. Peace is the sound of relationships not tearing against their proper order. Peace is the feeling of a house where timing, speech, nurture, service, and honor have come into a better arrangement. The daughter's inward wisdom becomes visible precisely because the dwelling begins to rest under it. And this gives deeper meaning to the idea of royal order. Royal order is not merely rank. It is the beauty of a dwelling where each thing stands in its proper light under the life of the king. The daughter participates in that royal order by making the house livable for glory. She does not create the kingdom by herself, but she gives it its household form. She translates hidden wisdom into daily peace. She makes the atmosphere of the dwelling agree with the truth of the covenant. So the deeper principle under her order is this: what is inwardly aligned before God gains the grace to align what is entrusted to it. The daughter can order the house because she is not beginning from the outside. She is beginning from an inward life that has learned measure, peace, reverence, and discernment. That is why her order can endure. It is rooted. It is not cosmetic. It is not the arrangement of surfaces only. It is the outflow of a life formed in wisdom. And perhaps this is the beauty of it all. The house does not receive from her because she dominates it, but because she becomes a vessel of right order within it. Her wisdom gives shape to love. Her discernment gives shape to peace. Her timing gives shape to nurture. Her speech shapes the atmosphere. Her inward harmony gives shape to daily life. In this way, the house begins to reveal what cannot be seen directly, the invisible wisdom at the heart of her presence. And once this begins to open, another question naturally arises. If her wisdom shapes the atmosphere, timing, nurture, and peace of the house, then how does this wisdom relate to the king's own order? How does the daughter's household peace reflect the larger royal order of the palace? Because the house she orders is not separate from the kingdom. It is meant to echo it. And when we ask how the daughter's ordered house relates to the king's own order, we begin to see that her household peace is not an isolated beauty. It is a reflection. It is a smaller radiance answering to a greater light. The house she orders is meant to echo the palace. The peace she carries is meant to agree with the peace of the kingdom. The wisdom by which she arranges the dwelling is not a wisdom separate from the king's own order, but a household expression of it. That is why her work matters so much. In the life of the house, something of the royal world becomes visible. This is very beautiful because it means the ordered house is not merely functional. It becomes a witness. It testifies that the life of the kingdom can take form within daily dwelling. It shows that royal order is not only for thrones, decrees, and great public scenes. It can descend into rooms, tables, conversations, rhythms of service, and the ordinary flow of life. The daughter makes this visible. Under her peace, the house begins to say with its very atmosphere that the king's order is not distant, it can be lived. So the household becomes a kind of earthly echo of the palace, not equal to it in greatness, but true to it in pattern. In the palace, there is honor, placement, beauty, joy, and right relations. In the ordered house, those same things begin to appear in smaller but living form. Honor is preserved. Relations are not allowed to collapse into confusion. Beauty is not vanity, but harmony. Joy is not chaos, but gladness shaped by peace. Service is not frantic, but meaningful. The house begins to reflect the character of the kingdom because the daughter has received its pattern inwardly and given it form outwardly. And this is why household peace becomes such a strong witness. A peaceful house is not merely pleasant. It proclaims something. It proclaims that wisdom is stronger than agitation. It proclaims that the right order is stronger than scattering. It proclaims that beauty can be joined to truth and warmth can be joined to reverence. It proclaims that the life of the king produces more than doctrines spoken from afar. It produces atmospheres that can be inhabited. It produces dwellings in which peace is not an idea, but a lived reality. This matters because many speak of the kingdom in words while their dwellings deny its sound. They speak of glory while their households breathe unrest. They speak of the king's peace while their rooms carry pressure, rivalry, and weariness. But the daughter's ordered house stands as another testimony. It says that what is true in the palace must also become true in the dwelling. It says that the kingdom is not fully honored when it is admired only in heavenly language, but not reflected in the atmosphere of daily life. The house becomes a witness precisely because it reveals whether revelation has taken form. So her order reflects the king's order through likeness of spirit. The king's order is not confused, neither is hers. The king's order is not rivalry, neither is hers. The king's order is not cold domination, neither is hers. His order is living, radiant, beautiful, just, and well-placed. Therefore, the daughter's household peace reflects him when it too becomes beautiful, just, life-giving, and rightly arranged. She does not imitate the kingdom by copying its splendor outwardly. She embodies its wisdom inwardly. And this is why the house can become a place of witness even to those within it. The children learn what the kingdom feels like before they can fully explain it. The attendants learn what holy service feels like by breathing its atmosphere. The gathered ones within the dwelling learn that peace is not weakness, that honor is not distance, and that beauty is not emptiness. The house teaches by what it is. It becomes a living parable of royal order. In that sense, the daughter does not merely maintain a home, she cultivates a testimony. This also gives greater dignity to the small things of household life. The table matters because it can reflect abundance without excess and fellowship without disorder. The way people are received matters because welcome is part of royal character. The tone of speech matters because words shape atmosphere. The handling of conflict matters because peace is not the absence of problems, but the way truth and mercy govern them. Even the rhythms of rest and labor matter because the kingdom is not frantic. It moves with purpose. So the house becomes a witness, not only in its grand meaning, but in its repeated patterns. And perhaps this is why the ordered house is so closely tied to glory in a hidden way. Glory is not only brightness, glory is weight, rightness, beauty that carries presence. When a house is truly ordered under the daughter's peace, there is a sense of weight in it. Not heaviness, but substance. Not pressure, but depth. Things feel held. Life feels gathered. Relations feel meaningful. There is a quiet radiance that comes when a dwelling is no longer fighting itself. That, too, is a witness to the kingdom. It tells all who enter that another order is at work here. So the daughter's household peace becomes a witness because it manifests the king's nature in domestic form. The royal order of heaven finds an echo in the rooms of the dwelling. The justice of right placement, the beauty of harmony, the honor of each thing in its proper place, the warmth of gathered life, the gladness of ordered abundance, all of this reflects the greater order from which it came. In this way, her house is not merely under the kingdom, it begins to resemble it. This does not mean the house becomes perfect in an absolute sense. It means it becomes faithful in pattern. It begins to turn toward the kingdom in its arrangement. It begins to agree with heaven in spirit. And that agreement itself is a testimony. A house need not be vast to witness. It need not be outwardly adorned like a palace. If it carries peace, wisdom, honor, and living beauty, it already bears the signature of another world. The daughter's gift is that she helps translate that unseen world into forms that the household can live within every day. So the deeper beauty of her ordering is this. She does not merely preserve the house from collapse. She allows it to become transparent to a greater order. Through her peace, the dwelling hints at the palace. Through her wisdom, the house's daily life begins to sound like the music of the kingdom. Through her discernment, even ordinary arrangements become part of a larger witness. The house becomes a place where one can sense, however quietly, that the king's order has touched the earth. And that is why household peace is never small. It is one of the most persuasive witnesses to the kingdom because it creates an atmosphere of invisible truth. It makes peace breathable. It makes honor visible. It makes wisdom tangible. It makes joy sustainable. When a house truly rests under that order, it tells the truth about the king without needing many words. It becomes a testimony in wooden rooms, in speech and silence, in service and rest, in how lives are held together under one dwelling. So the daughter's ordered house reflects the king's own order by becoming a place where the life of the kingdom can be felt in miniature. Not reduced, but translated. Not diminished, but made inhabitable. It becomes a witness to the fact that the royal world is not only above us as an unreachable beauty, but can descend in pattern into the places where people eat, speak, work, serve, grow, and rest. That is one of the deepest dignities of her role. She gives the king's order a household form, and once this is seen, the mystery grows even richer. Because if the ordered house reflects the king's own order and becomes a witness of the kingdom, then the house is no longer merely a private dwelling. It becomes part of the testimony of royal life. It becomes a lamp of order, a place of peace, a lived parable of covenant beauty under the king's hand. So when all these threads are gathered together, the mystery of the daughter and the ordered house begins to stand before us in its fullness. The daughter is not merely one who has entered the palace in beauty. She is one whose presence gives shape to the dwelling. She is not only honored in a royal scene, she becomes a source of peace within the household itself. Her wisdom does not remain hidden in abstraction. It takes form in rooms, in relations, in service, in nurture, in speech, in timing, in the daily flow of life. And through all of this, the house begins to reveal the quality of the life she carries. This is why the ordered house matters so deeply. It is not simply a domestic image added to the wedding mystery as a smaller theme. It is one of the great proofs that covenant beauty has become a living order. It shows that what entered in joy is now abiding in wisdom. It shows that the daughter is not only one who is received, but one through whom the dwelling itself begins to breathe differently. Peace becomes more than an idea. It becomes the atmosphere of the rooms. Wisdom becomes more than a virtue. It becomes the hidden architecture of daily life. And that is why the children, the attendants, and the gathered life of the household all matter. They are not incidental details. They are among the clearest witnesses to whether the order is real. The children reveal whether the house carries peace or confusion. The attendants reveal whether service moves in harmony or strain. The rooms reveal whether the dwelling has become one atmosphere or remains a collection of scattered fragments. The table reveals whether abundance has found order. The speech of the household reveals whether wisdom has touched the living sound of the house. Everything begins to testify. This makes the ordered house a very holy image. It tells us that the kingdom is not only proclaimed in large and public scenes, it is also manifested in the smaller world of the dwelling. It is seen when the atmosphere is governed by peace, when relations are held in honor, when daily rhythms become livable, when service is meaningful, when nurture is wise, and even when silence feels gathered rather than broken. The house becomes a witness precisely because it shows that royal order can take flesh in daily life. So the daughter's role is full of hidden glory. She does not merely beautify the house outwardly. She gives shape to its inward life. She orders it by presence, by discernment, by rhythm, by speech, by nurture, by peace, by knowing what must be protected and what must be cultivated. She does not govern through noise. She governs through formed wisdom. She does not make the dwelling beautiful by force, but by embodying a life that allows the house to come into harmony around her. In that sense, the ordered house becomes one of the clearest extensions of her own inward measure. And perhaps this is why the house can become a witness of the kingdom, because the peace she carries is not her own invention. It reflects the king's own order. The wisdom by which she arranges the dwelling is a household echo of a greater royal wisdom. The beauty of right relation in the house is a smaller radiance of the beauty that fills the palace. So the house becomes more than a private shelter. It becomes testimony. It becomes a quiet proclamation that the king's life can be translated into the atmosphere of a dwelling. That is why nothing in this mystery is truly small. The table is not small when it becomes a place of gathered life. The rooms are not small when they begin to breathe peace. The care of children is not small when it shapes the next generation under a sounder sky. The ordering of service is not small when it turns strain into meaningful rhythm. The guarding of speech is not small when it changes the sound of the whole house. All of these become part of the witness. They show that wisdom has taken form and that the kingdom has touched ordinary life. So the daughter and the ordered house belong together with great beauty. She is not only brought in, she gives shape after entrance. She is not only celebrated in procession, she becomes the atmosphere of the dwelling. She is not only associated with glory in the palace, she also reveals glory in the hidden life of the rooms. Through her peace, the children are formed. Through her wisdom, the attendants serve under a better sound. Through her discernment, the house learns rhythm. Through her presence, the dwelling becomes more fit for joy, for rest, for service, and for the quiet weight of living order. And this means the ordered house is one of the deepest continuations of the wedding mystery. The wedding is not only fulfilled in arrival, it is fulfilled in habitation. It is fulfilled when covenant beauty becomes daily peace. It is fulfilled when joy becomes sustainable. It is fulfilled when the life that entered the house begins to transform the house itself. Otherwise, the wedding remains only an event. But when the daughter's presence shapes the dwelling, the wedding becomes a living order. It becomes a continuing atmosphere of royal peace. So the mystery closes in beautifully. The daughter stands within the house, not as a passive figure, but as a living source of arrangement, nurture, and peace. The children grow under her atmosphere. The attendants move under her wisdom. The household begins to reflect the king's order. And the dwelling itself becomes a witness that the kingdom is not merely spoken of in distant splendor, but can be felt in the nearness of daily life, in the rhythms of service, in the peace of gathered rooms, and in the beauty of a house that has learned how to rest under a holy order. And perhaps that is one of the most precious things this teaching gives us. The kingdom is not only for great visions, great ceremonies, or great declarations. It is also for the house, it is for the table, it is for the children, it is for the attendants, it is for the speech that fills the rooms, it is for the atmosphere that surrounds daily life. The daughter bears witness to this by turning dwelling into testimony, by turning order into beauty, and by turning household life into a quiet reflection of the palace of the king. So the daughter and the ordered house stand together as one radiant sign. What is formed in covenant beauty can become the peace of a dwelling, and what reflects the peace of the king can become a witness of his kingdom in the life of the house. And so the daughter does not only enter the house in beauty, she gives shape to the dwelling through peace, wisdom, nurture, and holy arrangement. Under her presence, the children are formed, the attendants serve in a better rhythm, the rooms begin to breathe peace, and the household itself becomes a witness to the king's order. This is the beauty of the ordered house. What is received in covenant joy becomes established in daily life. What enters in glory becomes atmosphere. What is formed in hidden wisdom becomes visible in the peace of the dwelling. And this is why the house matters. Because the kingdom is not only revealed in palaces and processions, but also in tables, rooms, speech, service, nurture, and the quiet order of daily life under the king. Thank you, family, for being here. If this teaching helped you, please like, comment, and share. It truly helps this message reach those who are seeking. To our new subscribers, welcome. And if you'd like to go deeper, we invite you to join as a member. The link is in the description and on our homepage. We are praying for you and standing with you in the light of Messiah, He and Messiah, She. If you'd like to support the ministry, you can visit our store or bless our dear brother Michael via the Buy Me a Coffee link in the description below, which also includes a link to our second store with new designs. Thank you for your love and encouragement, and stay tuned for the next video. May the spirit of wisdom and peace rest upon you always.
Your